Thank you for auditing Professor Sky's Record Review, the new music review show that is always positive. Always positive. I emphasize that because that is my belief, that my show needs to always give good reviews. I think bad reviews are boring. So that's one of the reasons why I was maybe not going to review the album Culture 3 by Migos. I was afraid I wouldn't have anything positive to say. There are two other reasons why I wasn't going to review it. The second of which is that the album is 1 hour and 15 minutes long, and I try to give every song a lot of attention, and that's just a lot of this music to listen to at once. The third reason is the silliest, that I was going to review it, and then I saw that Fantano released a review, and we don't do the same thing, but I still just, whenever he releases a video on the same day or near the same time it always kind of throws me off. But it's really that first reason that I want to focus on, about never being negative. So I was afraid that when I would review the Migos, that I would just be a bitter old man. I talk a lot on this channel about how I am the Rip Van Winkle of music. I stopped paying attention to music around 2002, and then when I started this channel in 2018, I picked it back up again and started listening to a lot of new music. It turns out that Migos have been missing since I came back. We might be the same people. Have you ever seen us in the same room? So I was obviously aware of the Migos. I wasn't listening to music with good faith at that time, but I still heard them everywhere. I understood the importance. I had heard about the Versace flow, the triplet flow that they made famous just by saying the word Versace, Versace, Versace over and over again. I was familiar with their ad-libs because my son and his friends would joke about it and just run around the house going, "Offset!" I knew that they made trap beats. I knew that they did stuff with auto-tune, and as I used to consider myself something of a hip-hop purist, I kind of looked down at these beats of trap, and these tunes which have been autoed. I just didn't like any of those things. The thing I knew most about them was the walk it in the pocket joke that someone made where they read a Dr. Seuss book in the form of the Migos. I understood it. Like they were just kind of a funny symbol of whatever is happening to hip hop. I also remember that song White Tee, which is why I'm wearing a white t-shirt today, not a black one. So this is the thing though. I do this channel to challenge my preconceived notions. That's part of it. I am a professor of French, but I'm also a professor who teaches about hip-hop music, mostly in France, but also in America and throughout the world. So what am I going to do? Pretend like one of the most important rap acts of the previous decade? I'm just going to dismiss them? I'm just not going to ever take them seriously? No, I'm going to take them seriously. I'm going to analyze them. And as you can see by the fact that I have made this video, I have something positive to say. I have tried to review, as an example, Future. I've tried to do the thing where I listen with good faith and sort of accept the things that I don't like, but I've never managed to have enough good things to say about Future for me to do a video about him. Hopefully that'll change. And that's what I do. Whenever I try to listen to something and insist in my mind on good faith, a good faith listen, the most important thing, I think, is identify the number one thing you don't like. And then just say, okay, I accept that thing, whatever it is, whether it's a voice, instrumentation, a certain style, political stance, whatever it is, every musician, there's something you don't like. I just accept that and then move on. And usually what I find is that everything else, there's something I can like and glom onto. So what is there even negative to say, I came to love this album yesterday. I had to drive around with my wife and my son, and we were just driving around, kind of going between offices and stuff, and I put this on, and it was just pretty funny because my son, it turns out, he's in high school, so he grew up with the Migos as being one of the most dominant forces in hip-hop, right? So he was basically cracking jokes. He was like a stand-up comedian back there. He was like, you could just do a one-word review, Dad. I was like, yeah, just go, I was like, okay, and I understood what he was saying, that they don't say much, that all these ad-libs just seem to take over, and this kind of position takes over. I think that's probably somewhat true. He also said that he often makes the jokes, and his friends think it's funny, that one of the Migos could die, and no one would be able to tell, because they're so similar. is this accurate? I heard him say that, and then I thought about it, and I realized it's not entirely accurate. But it's probably more accurate than not, for reasons I'll get into soon. And then finally, he was commenting on the fact that they talk about switched Glocks, which is apparently some way of taking a gun, a Glock, and making it automatic. And he's saying this is something that really happens in the street. And my son said in his critical voice that this is what the Migos do. They come up with some kind of term from the streets, and then they just popularize it and just throw it into their rhymes to make them seem more authentic. Of course, this has been happening for years. You know, I explained that to my son, like, how does Jay-Z have such good verses about selling crack when he did that for like 3 years, 30 years ago, you know? Like, this just sort of is what people do. But still, I mean, it is true that the way they use slang and the way that they kind of glom on to the hot words, I could see it as being somewhat annoying. Speaking of things that I know about the Migos that I don't really understand, they had that song Bad and Bougie, which I only really know because I have to teach as a French professor so much about the bourgeoisie. When I teach the French Revolution, I have to teach the nature of the bourgeoisie. And the problem is bourgeois and bougie don't actually mean the same thing. I did not need that word to be more complicated in order to teach it properly. You know, I'm driving around, and then my wife, you know, English is not her first language, although she speaks English probably better than I do. But still, she has trouble sometimes, especially with hip-hop music, understanding what's being said. And she's been getting better and better and better at it. You know, we listened to Kick in the Door by Notorious B.I.G. the other day, and as far as she told me, you know, that she understood it and liked it a lot more than she did when she first met me. So good. I'm sort of giving her these new English lessons. But something like this, she said, listening to this album is, for me, is like the way that dogs must hear humans talk. Just blah 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 walk, blah 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 dogs, blah 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 good boy, blah 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 Bobo, blah 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 Toby, right? Like that's all they pick up. And sometimes they'll mishear words, you know, like we might say, do you want to go for a talk to each other? And then Toby starts wagging his tail because that's so close to go for a walk. You know, so for her, this is what she hears: just ba 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 F word, ba ba S word, ba 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 N word, ba ba ba. You know, just like these little words popping up. But all those things are not my problem. My problem, if having listened to this band a lot now, having listened to this trio, it's not that they're doing too much of the appropriating street slang. I don't care about that. It's not that they're interchangeable, because they're not really. It's not that they're too stupid, because they go vrrt, and it's not that they're not understandable. Ultimately, what I would say, if there is the biggest sin that the Migos are guilty of, it's that they're kind of boring. You know, all three of them are not exactly the same, but not one of them stands out enough. Thematically, they're not particularly interesting. They're not, like, funny. They don't have punchlines. They're not really scary. Like, they don't actually, like, put that sense of fear and danger into you. They're just kind of boring. And over an hour and 15 minutes, that might seem terrible. But the thing I would say, though, is that they're actually really fun. Like, listening to this music is enjoyable. They pick good beats. I like the sounds of their voice. I like the way their voices interact. The ad-libs are kind of catchy and fun. By the end of the album, I was just enjoying it. I've listened to it, 3 or 4 times now? I just enjoy it. It's just a nice listening experience. The Migos are nice. That might end up being my thumbnail. I think that's kind of a funny way to put it, right? Because they're this like huge, gigantic rap group and all this stuff, but they're nice. And I like that they're just a nice rap group. I think a lot of the interest has to come from the fact that there's 3 of them and they treat themselves equally. You know, they are a real group. And there's not many real hip-hop groups, right? Usually there might be a duo, but if there's ever more than 2, like if they're not totally in sync, you know, like De La Soul or something, then it's just inevitable they kind of break apart. And I actually really like that. Recently, I was watching one of my favorite comedians, Chris D'Elia, who is secretly, by the way, like a very, very good hip-hop comedian. Like, that's not a main part of his comedy, but he made him joke about E40 being Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that's just, like, that's a really smart joke. If you listen to E40 rap, that he sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyways, he pointed out that they're called the Migos because of the three amigos. And he laughed. And he's right to laugh, because that is just goofy as hell. Like they're naming themselves after a Martin Short movie from the 80s. But that's also part of this charm I'm talking about. Migos are nice and they're charming. So let's get into it. Let's get into this kind of bloated, kind of boring, but ultimately quite enjoyable rap album. One thing I will say about the production is it's pretty interesting. It's sort of deceptively interesting, because most of the beats are just standard trap beats with way, with way bumped up basses. But then in the background, there's often complicating issues, like complicated like strings or horns or something kind of happening back there. And that kind of sets the sound bed, and then goes into this somewhat interesting trio where just one, two, three, every song is just all three of them going, and sometimes a guest appearance, and you get to hear them and they go in different order. What I think is interesting is they don't do a lot of weaving. They don't go one next, one next. It's just like block of text, block of text, block of text. The thematics are mostly selling crack, making money, doing a little bit of doing drugs, a fair amount of misogyny. I will say this. I believe this is the first rap album in which the number one mentioned consumer good is not a watch, is not a car, is not jewelry. It's a purse. Purses are the biggest thing that are shot at, that are glorified in this album. I'll get into that purse relatively soon. She's actually looking over my shoulder in two ways. So how about some homework? This is what I do. Every video, I tell you one song to listen to as the example, and then I break that song down, and then I get to the rest of the album. So the homework, I'm going to put a link to it up here. It's called Straightenin'. As in, to make straight. It turns out this was their comeback single. And this is really fun for me because they're coming back, and as far as I'm concerned, they were never here, right? Like, I've never really taken them super seriously. I've never listened to Homework 1 or 2, okay? I'm walking into Return of the Jedi blind here. But this is a great example. I think because it's a comeback song, it's one of the stronger songs on the album. Like, they're trying to show who they really are. A great example of this trap beat with some weird orchestral sounds in the back, complicated yet not. A typically stupid chorus, as stupid possible chorus as you could possibly have, with just one word over and over again. But then there's a nice production detail with kind of like this auto-tune moan in the background. Reminds me of like sort of a Kid Cudi, Kanye style thing. One of the funniest things about this album, and this song in particular, is there are 9 people who made this song. 9 people. Okay, 9 people. That is so many people to make a song, which is basically just someone saying straighten and straighten and straighten and straighten and over and over again with a trap beat. But I don't know. Maybe they just give credit to people, and in other hip hop albums, there are more people who contribute who don't get credit. I don't know what. But I like it, because in the beginning, he says the name, Quavo, one of the rappers, starts off and says the name of everybody. DJ Jarrell, Chill, Shale, Domingo, Take, Set, Let's Roll. And it has this nice feeling of like they're all kind of getting together. And starts off with the chorus, straightening over and over again. You don't get nothing straightening but straightening. They say the word straightening. Take a guess how many times they say the word straightening throughout the song. I counted. I'll give you a second. If you said C, 98, you are correct. So close. Couldn't they have said it 2 more times? You know, I reviewed the King Gizzard album where they put 3,000 butterflies on the cover of their album. One of my viewers said that he counted them. Couldn't they have made it to 100 straightenings? And this is a great example of what Migos are. I don't know what straightening means. I mean, straightening, straight as itself is a fascinating word. At lunch the other day, I had a discussion with my daughter because I was talking about how I used to go to concerts. I used to go to Grateful Dead concerts totally straight, meaning I wasn't on drugs. And she was like, people go to Grateful Dead concerts gay? You know, like, she didn't understand the terminology. I had to explain to her that straight is a term which means heterosexual, which I don't think we should use anymore. Because, what's the other thing? Straight also means morally correct. So how about we stop using the term straight for not gay? it's a weird thing that has made it into our culture where we've allowed that to stay. But anyways, that's not what we mean by straight. And you know what I meant by straight by there was not doing drugs. Straight can also mean like I'm straight, like I'm all set, I don't need anything. But it can also mean revenge, you know, like getting revenge, getting straight with somebody. But I don't know. Like, I was thinking, like, is this like a drug reference? Like, straightening out crack? I don't know what that means. Something with baking powder? I don't think so. I think this is more that this is a comeback song, so if they're gone, then they're just straightening things out. Like, getting like, let's straighten it out. We're the Migos. We're superstars. Here we go. Let's go. I think that's what they mean by straightening. I'm really embarrassed about my hypothesis that it might have to do with straightening crack out. Sometimes I sound so much like an old man dad. I can't help it. Are they straightening out their crack cigarettes? Okay. So there we go. You know, we have this chorus which defines the song and which is what makes the Migos fun. It's fun. Yes, it's stupid. Yes, I reviewed Mock Hami and I prefer Mock Hami and J-Elec and all the great super sophisticated rappers who don't rely on ridiculous tricks like saying the same word over and over and over and over and over and over again 98 times. But also, hip hop can be dumb. Hip hop can just be fun. Hip hop can just be loud and kind of stupid. And why not just be you don't get nothing straightening but straightening. It's a tautology. You don't get anything straightened but straightened. That's the way you straighten. So it starts off with Quavo. Is my son right? Can you not tell the rappers apart? You definitely can. And I think if I had spent more time with this group over the last decade, I would definitely be able to see it. I'd be able to snap. You know, I'd be like, oh, Quavo, Offset, Takeoff. No, Offset and Takeoff? Yeah, Takeoff. You know, I'd be able to like identify them immediately, right? The reason I can't identify them is because I don't know them that well, which is a sign, right? It is a sign that maybe their voices could be more interesting. But I like Quavo. As far as I can tell, Quavo is the star, but he's also the worst. So he has like the most charisma to his voice. He has kind of a small, aggressive feel to him. His rhymes are fine. He talks about Tenet, the movie. He talks about meeting De Niro. And he, you know, talking about turning a pandemic into a bandemic. Apparently, bando is this term that they popularized for an abandoned trap house, an abandoned house where people sell crack. After they straightened it, you know, purists of hip hop will say, turned a pandemic into a bandemic isn't a rhyme because a bandemic isn't a thing. And you can't turn a pandemic into a, like, what does it mean? Just mean something. The next verse is by Takeoff. I think I like his voice the most. He does that most kind of ducka stuff. And this is the thing about a lot of modern kind of, you know, southern rap. You know, they're from Atlanta, I believe, right? If they're not from Atlanta, put in the comments that I'm an idiot, but I'm 99% sure they're from Atlanta. So often I think these rappers are discounted just because the content of what they say may not be as interesting, but the way they play with the rhythms of words is quite interesting, and particularly like the triplet flow itself is interesting, and all this kind of like it does, going back to my wife's comment, it does take language and break it into syllables, right? To the point where it's not actually about at all what you're saying. It's just breaking it into syllables, which, come to think of it, is why that walk it in a pocket thing is so funny, is because that's what Dr. Seuss does. Dr. Seuss really does announce a lot of rap music, not because he rhymes, not because it's like, you know, there's a Fletzel with a pretzel and he's turning up a Detzel. Not like that. It's this weird abstract ability to take consonants and syllables and just break them apart, and where the content of the words doesn't really matter, and what does matter is the flow and the rhythm of the words. God damn it. Dr. Seuss really does what a lot of rap artists do. Wow. That's fun. I hadn't really thought about that. There must be other videos about this, so I'm not pretending like I'm some special guy for figuring that out right here on video. But I just figured that out right now. I don't have a script. I have notes. Then we get to Offset. The fastest rapper, the least intelligible, I think the most talented based on this entire album. One thing he does, he changes his flow halfway through the verse. When he starts saying Tasmanian Devil, the verse changes completely. The flow changes completely. And I really like that again. Like, he shows a fair amount of ability. The thing is that the whole thing can feel so bland, can feel like a white t-shirt. Just rapper after rapper after rapper. You have to really take some time to see what makes it interesting. He also makes, I believe, a reference to Big Punisher. He says, I keep a Mac in the back of a Tesla. There's a famous skit, I think off of Big Pun's second album, maybe his first, where he talks about keeping a Mac 9, a gun, in the back seat of his car, which is an Acura. So he says, packing a Mac in the back of the Ac. Oh, packing a Mac in the back of the Ac. I don't know, because Mac and Tesla doesn't rhyme at all. So, like, I keep a Mac in the back of the Tesla. I don't know. I don't know if this is like an intentionally broken rhyme or not. So there's my example of a song, and it's great. I really enjoy it. I'm happy it's there. I hope when I get in the car and I turn on, the radio station to the hottest hip hop and R&B, that this is playing. This is a lot better than a lot of pop rap that I've heard over the years, and I think it's great. I'm going to go through the rest of the album surprisingly quickly, considering the fact that it's an hour and 15 minutes of songs that are written and composed by 17 people that repeat the same words 100 times with 3 rappers who have to do 16 bars. Okay. Avalanche is the first track. Good intro, sets the tone, shows that style very nicely with the kind of weird, complex musical elements hidden behind the trap beat. Having Our Ways with Drake. Drake seems to be trying pretty hard here. A weird, odd trap beat again with strings. I like Drake here. He's slightly auto-tuned. He name checks the CEO of Universal, which makes sense. Talks about, don't understand you if you have more followers than dollars. Again, this is a new thing that's happening in rap where rhyming doesn't matter. Like, close enough. Dollar, follower. Close enough. Quavo comes on, a nice kind of simple delivery with some auto-tune in the back. Offset is the first time I heard him say offset, which is funny because that's the main joke that my son's friends used to make. And then the next track is called Type S-Word with Cardi B. More of a straightforward trap beat here. A little quicker interaction between the rappers. In the chorus they say, is that what keeps you trending? And it's just kind of funny having these references to trending. I always find it odd when hardcore street rappers talk a lot about social media. But that just is the reality. I mean, that's just is, so it's fine. Cardi B is good here. I like Cardi B. Or as I like to say to piss off my children, Cardib. Cardib is quite good here. She makes reference to Lamb Chop, the sock puppet, which is, like, how old are you, Cardib? Are you like 50? I mean, even in my, I'm 43, and Lamb Chop is already sort of like old. Okay. Malibu's with Polo G. Nice having another sort of a rapper who I don't know particularly well, breaking up the flow. Birthday. The flow on here, the beat reminds me a little bit of like The Freaks Come Out at Night by Houdini. There's some weird sort of like 80s throwback tunes here. That's also the one that starts off with some auto-tune rapping. I was expecting the whole thing to be auto-tune, but it wasn't, which is good. The song Modern Day shows something about them, which I think is in some ways they are crude and unlikable. Like rhyming the word, the B word for a woman, like a female dog, not that kind, with brick. Like those words just don't rhyme. Break down a b, break down a brick. Like they just don't quite rhyme, and just breaking them down, I don't know, it's not great. It makes them sort of, when they're at their worst lyrically, I would say they are crude and unlikable. And if you're going to be unlikable, if you're going to be crude, you have to be that sort of like devilish, like, I can't believe I like Eazy-E based on what he said, but every time I hear Eazy-E, I love the guy, despite the fact, like, he's done terrible things. Terrible things. He had lunch at the White House with George H.W. Bush. He's done terrible things in his life. I'm not just talking about the stuff he talks about in his lyrics. Then we get to the song Vaccine, which is cool to have a full-on COVID song. Hit him with the jab, kind of funny. It sounds to me like there's all these songs that are like almost samples. Like it felt to me that Birthday was almost Freaks Come Out at Night. This sounds almost like the Nutcracker Suite by Prokofiev? No, Tchaikovsky. Jesus Christ. Okay. It sounds a little bit like that in the background. And they're saying over and over again, I make money during quarantine. And as a YouTuber, I can tell you, I made money during quarantine. Well, I only started monetizing my videos like 6 months ago. But I am having more success because of quarantine. So maybe that's what they're talking about. Picasso, here we have Future. I just don't know what to say about him. I did have a lot of fun because the thing that I like about Future is that he starts off everything with that blah, blah. Just every song, blah, blah. So I was just driving around with my family going, yeah, blah. Like it's so funny to have like your artistic statement just to start everything off with blah. But it's fine, you know, the kind of weird mumble and auto-tune mixed together. Roadrunner is maybe the hardest song on the album. It's kind of ominous beat, nice fast verses. He teases the Birkin joke that he's going to make later. If you want a Birkin, you have to work it. We'll talk about that soon. And I think he makes reference to Canada mints, which are some of my favorite mints. These little pink mints that you can get at CVS in a bag for 98 cents. Pretty good candy. I don't know why he's talking about Canada mints. What You See is with Justin Bieber, or as my son said, he was on fire. Whenever my kids start like making jokes, I start doing the Seinfeld theme. Boo, ba doo, boo, 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 doo. And so he's like, oh, this is Justin Bieber, or the Justin Bieber MIDI pack, implying that you can just like take Justin Bieber like and sort of like recreate him in some kind of synthesizer you can just plug directly into your computer, which I think is pretty fair because Bieber is totally asleep here, not doing anything interesting. This is terrible. This song's terrible. There's nothing good I can say about this song. That's what I gotta say. That's what I gotta say. I gotta say, Professor, that's what I say about this song. It's just like boring as hell. Like for a song that's supposed to be like really like upbeat and interesting. Or not upbeat, but like catchy and like, it's Bieber, it's Migos, whoa, it's 2018 again. This is 2000 and late. This is some bad music. This is the kind of song where I hope it gets really big so that Todd in the Shadows can do a video about what a bad song it is. By the way, probably my favorite music critic on the internet. Just, like, that's amazing. You know, like, just, there's so much to say about why this is such a boring waste of space. So I'm going to keep moving on to a song I like a lot more, Jane, in honor of Jane Birkin, who you have up there. So it's very weird. Jane Birkin, Hermes, also known as Hermes, made a bag and they designed it and they named it after her. Because in the 60s, she was a fashion icon. Now, it's weird for me because I love Serge Gainsbourg. He's one of my favorite musicians, and this was his wife for a period of time, and his muse, and they made music together, and the history of Melody Nelson is there. Matter of fact, that up there is a Birkin plant, a Birkin philodendron, and I named it Melody Nelson. So there you go. Like they made all this great music together. She's a great singer. She and Serge Gainsbourg had a baby. That became Charlotte Gainsbourg, the actress and singer. And so like it's weird for me to hear Jane Birkin's name over and over and over and over and over again when I can only think about Jane Birkin, the British actress who married the French singer who made all this great music. But it's about fashion. So there you go. It's all about fashion. It's all about these bags. This is why I'm telling you that like Birkin is mentioned more than anything else. And here's the thing about the rap purist, how the rap purist deals with an album like Migos, is that the line that she says, she want a Birkin, she has to work it. Work it and Birkin don't rhyme. So they say this like 40, 50 times, but they don't rhyme. But this is the thing. You know it does rhyme. Work in. Birkin. You want the Birkin, you put the work in. What? How hard was that? I'm not even a rapper. I've never even straightened out crack cigarettes with baking powder, okay? What am I? I'm just some loser professor dude. But like, why not say you want the work in, you want the work in, you want the Birkin, you put the work in. Why work it Birkin? It doesn't rhyme, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't rhyme, but it doesn't matter. That could be the name of their next album. But anyways, it's a great song. It's funny. It's weird, you know, like basically talking about turning your girlfriends into prostitutes for luxury bags, but whatever. Cool beat. Actually, the beat reminds me of the Three Amigos with these like kind of Mexican sounding horns in the back. At this point in the album, I'm just happy. I'm just happy listening to it. I'm happy to be in this world. Whatever it is the Migos do, I'm on board. We hit the track Antisocial, featuring Juice WRLD, one of 2 dead rappers on this. He's on autopilot too, but I just love him. I can't help it. I can't help but love Juice WRLD. You talk about someone whose charisma overcomes his lack of talent. That's Juice WRLD. He just rhymes. No one else knows how to rhyme love and drugs like this guy does. And it's just good. It's just good. The first verse talks about, I drink codeine so that I can feel anything. I don't think, again, I'm not a drug guy. I don't think that's how it works though. I don't think you ingest codeine to be in touch with your feelings. I don't know. What do I know? Do you straighten out codeine? Do you straighten out lean? Next track is called Why Not? Kind of a filler song, pretty good. Mahomes, kind of the rocket in my pocket style. He actually spells out success and blessed, which is kind of funny, an interesting idea. These words that rhyme, and he spells them out instead, kind of back to the Dr. Seuss world. Then Handle My Business, again, sounds like a sort of sample of Billie Jean in the background, but not really, you know. I'm really enjoying this style. Then the song Time For Me, kind of a sing-song version, but I kind of like it, you know. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be a hit. It's just a nice song. Light It Up is like the weirdest song on the album. The production on here actually, it's almost interesting. And that sounds really patronizing and tomato. But it's like, it's an oddly engaging beat that's doing kind of weird like hawk sounds, and things are backwards and forwards. Maybe it's because Pop Smoke is on here, another dead rapper. Hey, is the reason that none of the Migos are dead because there's 3 of them? I was thinking about that. Uh-oh, Toby's up. He must have heard me saying walk. You know, is that the thing where it's like, because there's 3 of them, they have like a support network and they're not overwhelmed by fame? I don't know, but I like it. Sorry, just gonna hear Toby walk around towards the end here. Need It has got Young Boy Never Broke, who's pretty good on the song as well. Cool kind of frenetic synthesizer melody. These last 2 tracks sort of hint at a more bizarre, more sonically interesting album than the rest of the album that we got. But there we go. There's my experience with the Migos. I enjoy it. I very much enjoy their music. I'm happy to have heard it. And now I see why everyone likes them so much. Okay. Well then, for Toby, there's the camera. Offset!